Tonight, it's the Human Rights Foundation Freedom Tech Series. As always, it's my favorite. Very lucky to have Alex Lee and Alex Gleason with us tonight. We're going to be diving into Nostr, or Nostr, depending on how you like to pronounce it. We had this fight earlier. I'm a Nostr guy. I feel like Nostr is more positive. Nostr sounds like no, sir.
I'm a Nostr guy, personally.
That's okay.
I'm Nostr, so we got every side of the opinion.
Can we get hands for Nostr? Hands for Nostr? All right.
There we go.
Outgunned.
And the crossroads with AI, right? So if you chimed into the Twitter, we got a little feedback. Sorry about that. If you chimed into the spaces that we had upstairs just before this, we talked a lot about sort of these catalysts that lead to adoption. Obviously, you know, Zaps was a big one, led to a lot of Bitcoiners moving into Nostr. The support from Jack Dorsey and a lot of other folks really sort of exploded development and a lot of different use cases and functionality. AI might be that next catalyst. So, you know, tonight we're going to dive into that. And of course, a big part of this is talking about how AI and Nostr is going to facilitate better, faster, stronger, safer work for activists globally when they're in, you know, tenuous situations on the ground dealing with authoritarian dictatorships. So with that, as always, this is a tavern chat, right? This is not just an interview or a symposium or anything where you're just supposed to sit there on your hands. Personally, church and school, I like to sit in the back and not say anything. But if you have a question, if you don't fully understand a technical term of art that we use, feel free to raise your hand and, you know, don't be shy. Ask, you know, what does that mean? Or if there's something that you want to double click on and talk about a little bit more, feel free to chime in. These things are always best when it's treated like a tavern chat. So with that, thank you for being here. Welcome to PubKey, and let's kick it off with Alex and Alex.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for being here. My name is Alex Lee. I'm the Bitcoin development lead at the Human Rights Foundation. The Human Rights Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit. We promote human rights in authoritarian countries. We do all the traditional human rights work, trying to free political prisoners, advocacy at the United Nations, trying to push for, you know, free and open societies. We also try to use technology to push for human rights. We have a financial freedom program. We have a Bitcoin development fund. We try to give grants to support free and open source technology, freedom tech, to help give activists the tools they need in their struggle for freedom, giving activists access to freedom money so governments can't steal their donations, stop them from fundraising, stop them from spending money online, educating activists about tools like Bitcoin, eCash, end-to-end encryption, Nostr, AI, so they can be more effective in their work. And today we have Alex Gleason.
Hello.
No better person to introduce Alex Gleason than yourself. So could you tell us a little bit about your background, your work, and how you got here?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an open source developer. I've been doing open source software for a long time. And I'm the creator of something called Soapbox, which is a decentralized social media sort of platform turned into company. And I was head of engineering at Truth Social for a period of time. I ended up leaving that and jumped ship to Nostr. And now I'm here. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so if you're unfamiliar with terms like Nostr, Mastodon, you know, these are all decentralized attempts to try to make social media. That may be underselling Nostr a bit, but how would you describe what Mastodon, Nostr, the Fediverse is, and how it relates to your work?
So there's a long history. I mean, it started probably with RSS, you know, 20, 30 years ago, and then it's kind of evolved into ActivityPub, activity streams, probably dozens of different attempts of trying to do decentralized social media, most of which you've probably never heard of, many of which have failed. But the biggest ones that are still in the world right now are ActivityPub, also known as Mastodon, Blue Sky, AppProto, and Nostr, also known as Nostr.
So how would you describe the difference between all these different platforms?
So none of them are platforms, they're all protocols. The thing that connects them together is that they're all decentralized, which means that users to some degree have control over their data, their identity, and how they can interact with the network online. So in ActivityPub and Mastodon, so ActivityPub is the name of the protocol, Mastodon is the name of the most popular software of ActivityPub. In this design, people run servers, and then other people can join those servers. They can talk between these servers on different domain names, and it's kind of like these different fiefdoms where people, form, argue with each other, and then ban like entire nodes of the network and stuff. Probably most people here have heard of Blue Sky. So Blue Sky is their product. Their protocol is AppProto. And with them, they are basically just centralized and pretending to be decentralized. Because in theory, you could switch out certain parts of the system and make it be decentralized, but it isn't. And Nostr, which is both the name of there just is no like quintessential Nostr product, right? Like Damus, Primal, Ditto, and from the very start, that's a thing that makes it really decentralized to me, is the fact that there's these different companies and people who are building these amazing things. There's no necessarily one product, right? And then on the technical side, the way that it works is very much more decentralized than the other solutions because of the fact that users have a private key, very similar to Bitcoin. And so users also have a level of personal responsibility that comes with having that private key. But then they can take that key and they can sign events. They'll write posts like on Twitter, but it can do many other things too. We could replace GitHub with Nostr, and these are the things that I'm really excited about. Nostr stands for Notes and Other Stuff transmitted over relays. The notes is Twitter, and the other stuff is everything else that the internet can do, all of the different ways that we interact online. And that's what I'm really excited about next.
So if you haven't used Nostr before, you can download a client like, let's say, Damus on the iPhone, or you could use Amethyst or Iris or Yakihone or the many Android clients out there, and you can log in, create a private key, and then share your public key with other people so they can follow you, and you can have like a decentralized X/Twitter-like experience where you transmit your information over relays, and you don't have to worry about censorship, and you can be more self-sovereign, you can have free speech on this platform. What drew you to decentralized technologies like Nostr, like Mastodon, over like working at, let's say, X and working from within to make it better?
Yeah, so open source originally. So when I was younger, I'd have all these debates in my head of trying to figure out what are my views on life, right? Like my internal philosophies. And one of the big ones that had a huge impact on me was open source. And I was an artist, and I thought that I was eventually going to become an artist, but I realized that developing software is something that can be a lot more powerful. And open source just made a lot of sense to me, coming from a background of an artist. And I think many artists will understand, like if you're a musician, people will remix songs. Or people like Andy Warhol, doing all of these different derivative works. And so without the government basically coming in and saying this is how it should be, what we would have is a free culture where it's just people are just taking and remixing anything, whatever they want. And why is it that Star Wars, like, why can't the children of Star Wars make a new Star Wars movie? Like, why is Mickey Mouse still, well, Mickey Mouse, never mind. That one is covered, that one's fixed, right? Or Steamboat Willie anyway. But this kind of led me down this path of, wanting just everything to be open source. The whole world should be open source. And for social media, that was something that I realized very early on was one of the most important things to be open source. But how do you make social media that's open source, where people can contribute to it, people can read the source code, people can remix it and create their own? Well, a big problem with that is if the users can't talk to each other on all of these different, open source platforms, then what's the benefit there? There's never going to be a network effect. So we need decentralization in order to make open source social networks a reality. What's up?
Do you believe in any form of intellectual property?
The question was, do you believe in any form of intellectual property?
Personally, not really. I think that it was something that was sort of imposed at a time where maybe it made sense. I don't think it makes sense anymore in the age of the internet. I don't think a mom should be raided by a SWAT team because her son pirated a movie off of the internet.
Yeah, that's a very contentious debate. Going back a bit to your past, you worked kind of, what do you say, you worked for President Trump, or you worked at Truth Social, which is, one of President Trump's
Right.
many business endeavors, and you helped build it from the ground up. How do you describe your time working at Truth Social, and how did you feel going into the job when you were trying to build out Truth Social, and how did you feel when you left, and why did you leave?
Yeah, so I had built Soapbox before Truth Social. That's my open source. It started out as a fork of Mastodon, actually. And then the Truth Social people reached out to me. They sent me an email and said, hey, we've read your blog. We know what stuff that you're currently involved in. And would you be interested in working on something really big? And we can't tell you what it is.
So at that time, you didn't know this was related or affiliated with Trump at all. It was just a
I
cold
didn't.
email.
Yeah. It was just some guy who it ended up being Josh Adams, and this is a person who, from the moment I started talking with him, I felt that he was like Rick from Rick and Morty, and he's like, Morty, get on the spaceship, like. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna ride this wave. I don't really know where this is gonna go, but let's do it. And he convinced me from that one phone call. I still didn't know what I was getting myself into. But he had seen what I had developed at Soapbox, and he wanted to use it, and I thought, great, sounds like a great opportunity to get my work out there. And then I found out it was Donald Trump, and I was like, oh, actually, I don't think that Donald Trump should have been banned on Twitter. I think that that's actually a major problem that has caused a lot of division in society today. It's a thing that's like still a major source of today's culture war. So. I'm a believer in freedom of speech. I'm a liberal by the original definition of the term. And so I decided to work for Donald Trump. And originally our team was some of the most amazing people that I've ever met in my life. It really surprised me because I'm sure many of you know how Donald Trump's businesses are run and how they often end up. And so I wasn't very, optimistic at first, but they proved me wrong. But then it kind of ended up taking a turn where it became the exact thing that you would expect it to be. And at that point, I knew there was no hope anymore. And I was really, so they had forked Mastodon, right? And that was what I was working on. They wanted to use my software. They're still using Soapbox as their interface on the web. And so thanks to my contributions there, their web interface is open source. And so I'm still happy about that, but
You're telling me if I wanted to build Alex Lee Social, I could just fork that open source front end and make it.
yeah, exactly. So I did end up leaving there because it was clear that our values were not aligned. I was really interested in solving the fundamental problem of Donald Trump being banned off of Twitter, and they weren't. They're interested in their conservative hug box where they can just ban, they can be their own ruler of their own little world. And they weren't interested in connecting it with the wider decentralized web, which I feel like is such a missed opportunity because, that's our real chance to heal the division in this country. And so once I realized they weren't about it, then I knew that I had to leave. And so I had learned a little bit about Nostr.
So how did you discover Nostr? Tell us that story.
So I had known about it, but there was not a lot of traction on it. I was most interested in just making this idea of open source, decentralized social media win. And at the time, it seemed like ActivityPub was going to be the way to do it. But there was a bunch of resistance in ActivityPub to the stuff that I was building. And Nostr came around, and Jack Dorsey, came and he backed it, and he's like, yes, this is a future. I found that the people who were working on that were much greater friends to me. And so I kind of, went into that space, and I built a bridge between ActivityPub and Nostr.
So before you built Truth Social, you were working on Soapbox, and Truth Social adapted Soapbox to create their social media platform.
Exactly.
But now Soapbox runs on Nostr. So what was it about Nostr out of everything out there that made it feel like that was the right fit? Well, that was the right protocol to build on for Soapbox?
Yeah, so just the problems with ActivityPub.
And ActivityPub is what Mastodon runs on.
Right,
Which
exactly.
is a popular social media alternative.
There are just so many problems with that approach that Nostr fixes. And so I'm just like, I want this project to win. I want decentralized open source social media to win. And when I read about the things that Nostr does and the way that it works, you know, on Mastodon, the biggest problem is these fiefdoms, because these certain individuals start these servers, and then people join that server, but then their account is tied to that server, to that particular individual forever. So it could just be some, you know, random guy in Europe or whatever start a server, and then thousands of people join it, and then he shuts it down, and now that whole network is gone. Or
And you lose all access to your account.
Right.
Someone else shuts down their server.
and these people often are worse with moderation than the centralized solutions are. Like, at least you kind of know what you're getting with the centralized platforms, right? Like, but on Mastodon, you're just at the whims of some guy's emotions. And that, to me, is not a real sustainable solution for long-term decentralized social media. And Blue Sky really isn't either. So Nostr is the only one that has any level of traction right now today that I truly believe could fulfill that vision.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier that one of the popular Mastodon servers was what, gay.af? Could you tell us a bit about that story?
Yeah. So gay.af, like gay as fuck, right? It's a joke, but this server, the .af top level domain is actually owned by Afghanistan, and so the Taliban revoked their access to gay.af, and so this whole server just had to shut down forever. And there's no way for these people to move to a different server. Like all of these people who are on this server have a sour taste in their mouth forever of decentralized social media. That's the way they perceive it, right? And they don't know that there's a better option. They're probably never going to try Nostr now, and that sucks. Yeah.
So if you're on X, you often might hear about the other platform, right? The bluer skies or Blue Sky. What do you see? How do you compare Blue Sky to Nostr, and what makes Nostr better in your opinion?
So Blue Sky is the media's darling, unfortunately. But so like they've built it in such a way where it's almost like, you know how in like Marxism there's this concept of the withering away of the state, where like you're supposed to take over the state, and then like once you seize control, then like the state will go away, and then you've achieved true perfect communism. I think that this is actually Blue Sky's approach of how they're going to achieve this end goal, and I just don't think that we've ever seen in reality someone like a group take over the government and then just, you know, wither away. And we're, you know, they keep saying we're working on it, but we still don't actually see the decentralization happening in Blue Sky.
So on Blue Sky, you can be banned.
Yeah. They have full control of what people can see and what they can't see, because it all goes through one server. And in theory, this one server could be interchanged, but it just isn't in practice.
But can you be banned on Nostr?
No, you absolutely can't. I mean, you know, you have a private key, and your private key is your identity. And so, you know, the worst that could happen is some like Nostr client could hard code against your key or something, then you just go switch to a different client. Like the way it works fundamentally on Nostr is you make a post, right? You write your hello world or your like joke or whatever, you hit submit. It signs this event with your key, and then there's relays. And it'll take this one message and it'll copy it to say 10 different relays. And a relay is just a server, like on the internet. And so now your message is on these 10 different relays. And so any client that's connected to any of those relays now can see your message. And all you need is overlap of one. And so if a relay goes down, then probably that's fine, because you've copied your message to 10 different relays.
So quick show of hands, who here has like a X account or, you know, Twitter account, or has a Facebook or a centralized social media platform? So that's maybe about 80, 90% of the room. Who here has a Nostr account? Oh, wow, that's actually pretty good. I'd say a little over 60%. So actually a lot of people here have Nostr, but I suspect if I went out on the street, the answer would be very different. There would be a lot of people with X and, you know, centralized Instagram, Blue Sky, but not that many people on Nostr. So why do you think people in general default to centralized solutions like X or Threads, where they can be banned, they can be shadow banned, you can be, you know, you can just basically have your social media existence be deleted at the whim of some employee at one of these governments. When you have Nostr, where you can't be banned, it's free speech, it's much better in many ways. Why do people use centralized systems?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest problem is just that everybody is there. And so like as activists, something that we can do is to just choose to not be there and to be somewhere else that's better. And then by like denying your presence on these platforms, maybe it can create a shift where people will want to move to protocols that are better for their freedom, essentially. So I think that's what we're up against right now is like that social network already exists, but the way that it is structured right now is kind of like a one world government, and I think that's just not the way people are. I think people have, you know, different points of view, different culture, and it just doesn't, like humans are naturally tribal, right? It just doesn't fit to force everyone into one sort of box on the internet the way that like, you know, Facebook and X are trying to do. And they're really just like these big tech giants are battling with each other of who's going to be the biggest king of the internet, right? But what we really need is a federation.
Yeah, so at the Human Rights Foundation, we educate activists how to use Bitcoin so they have money the government can't control. That way, in their work, they don't have to worry about their bank account getting frozen and all their money being stolen by the government. And they have a way to fundraise and spend money without government surveillance and control. And we educate activists about Nostr so they have a megaphone. They have a free speech platform where they can post about the work they're doing, organize, be advocates without having to worry about social media censorship on centralized platforms. But we still see at the Human Rights Foundation, activists still obviously, many of them still prefer to use centralized bank accounts. Many of them aren't huge fans of Bitcoin, and most of them are posting on X/Twitter, but they're not on Nostr. What other ways can we change that other than, you know, posting more on Nostr and being advocates for Nostr? Is there, what else do you see as the way to try to drive Nostr adoption?
I mean, in a sense, I hope that maybe it's just inevitable because of the fact that it is this sort of like, you know, one world government type of thing on X, and Elon's gonna fuck up, and he has in the past, and it's just it's gonna make people want to jump ship to other solutions, and I think it's unfortunate that so many people are jumping to Blue Sky like as Elon is fucking up because they're gonna realize that Blue Sky has all the exact same problems. So, I mean, I think things in the world happening, you know, potentially do that. Also, something I'm really excited about is AI and people using AI to build things that they never have been able to build before. And so I think that there's this huge opportunity right now to kind of like return to the old version of the web, like the fun version of the web, like MySpace, where people were able to customize and build things and have fun and experience joy instead of so much rage online. And that's my hope for what the future is going to be. And I see that as a major winning strategy is using AI to generate code. And without needing any knowledge or experience in coding, to essentially just say, build me a site like Instagram, build me a site like Twitter, build me a site like this, and then be able to customize it to be exactly the way that they want.
So you've built tools like MKStack, which allow people who don't know how to code to use AI and vibe code Nostr applications, which is really cool. What do you see as the role? What is the relationship between AI and Nostr, in your opinion?
So how Nostr benefits from AI is that it makes it so easy to build things. And that's a big difference also between Nostr right now and the other decentralized protocols like ActivityPub and Blue Sky is that their integrations are really difficult. And there's no just like, you know, quick little library you can pull in to just make it work, right? Whereas with Nostr, you can do that. You just pull in a little library and you make it work. And so, like, it is actually possible to vibe code fully functioning applications based on Nostr in one prompt. And that's really what MKStack is about. Through this iterative process, I've kind of like, you know, you start by telling the AI, build me a site like Twitter. And then you see all of the mistakes that it makes and all of the ways that it can't do it. And so what I've done is I've built a template that doesn't have any user interface really at all, but it has components that can be pulled in. And I have a context file that lists all of the different components. It's things like, you know, accordion, avatar, card, like these basic UI elements. And then also, it has access to libraries that can do Nostr functions. And so in this context file, I also have like how to log in with Nostr. Here's how you create a login button. And when you provide all of this information to the AI, it makes it possible to just say, build a site like Twitter, and then in one prompt, you have a fully functioning site like Twitter, where people can go and they can write a post, they can follow people, they can like and repost, comments. And I think that's really exciting because it's changing what it means to be a developer. And it's making it possible for more people to be a developer than ever before. And on Nostr specifically, just because it's a permissionless, decentralized system, because of its technical design, and because of the fact it's open source, and because of the fact that it has these fundamental freedom values, it's easy to do it with AI. And meanwhile, the big tech giants are fighting right now trying to get a login button to work on any vibe-coded app because they have some complicated backend with OAuth or whatever that they're just fighting with constantly. And so you see sites like Lovable and V0 and Bolt or whatever that are kind of doing similar type of things for vibe coding, but you just can't get that login button.
Yeah, so if you're using a centralized service like Facebook, you have to use the Facebook app or go to facebook.com to interact with Facebook products. Same thing with X or Reddit. So why would someone want to build something on Nostr? Like, what are examples of things that people can vibe code on Nostr that are better than centralized services?
I mean, we have so many. I'm just going through the list in my head. Like, we have a virtual pet called Blobby that's like a Tamagotchi, and the idea is that as you use your Nostr account, this virtual pet grows.
It's like a little game.
Yeah, we have Your Space, which is like a version of MySpace on Nostr, where you have full customization over your profile. We have Treasures is one of my favorites, which is a geocaching app. If you don't know about geocaching, it's about going and placing like little boxes full of toys in the world, and then people will go and find it, and they'll like take a toy and leave a toy. And what I love so much about that is that it's like touch grass mode, sort of. Like we have all this outrage on the internet right now. I kind of feel like that actually just fixes the entire internet because it gets people going outside. And so that's something I'm excited about. I'm also excited about replacing GitHub. I've been doing a lot of experiments with like making it possible for people to develop things with AI and then easily share it with others so that other people can collaborate on that with AI as well. And lately, something that I've been developing that I'm really excited about is called Shakespeare. And this is a tool that's similar to Lovable that has a user interface that allows people to go on without a terminal. You just go on a website. It's shakespeare.diy, and that's going to allow people to just write a prompt of build me a website like Twitter, and it'll just build it for you right there. We had a question over here. What's up?
I heard you say you're working on a GitHub sort of implementation. Have you heard of Nostr? There's this guy Randy who's been working on it for a while.
So the person I've been talking with most is named Dan Conway Dev. He created NGit, and I believe he's the author or major contributor of NIP34. And I'm really excited about that because I realized that it's possible to clone Git repositories completely inside of a web browser.
I'll share it with you after. Anyway, I
Cool.
think it's worth taking a look at. He has like a working implement of a CLI based in Nostr.
Another thing about the Git stuff is that there's a thing called Grasp now that allows people to instantly create Git repositories on Nostr relays. So the user experience result of this is that all you need is a Nostr key, and then you can instantly start pushing Git repositories. And so the way I see that going is like in Shakespeare, for example, people will be able to, without any knowledge of programming or code, will be able to go and type a prompt and then get a result, basically, and it shows you this preview of the thing that you've built, which could be like a music player for sharing music. It could be like a geocaching app, anything your heart desires. And then be able to instantly share that over Git. Other people can pull it down and then use Shakespeare to collaborate. And I'm really excited about all the things people have been building. It's been like this explosion of this renaissance that I'm not sure I've seen it anywhere else except on Nostr, just because on Nostr it's truly possible to vibe code a complete app in a single prompt. And I'm excited about what everyone has been building, and I'm excited about what people are going to build.
So we're right now. Hello? Yeah. Oh, yeah. What's your question?
So I was just gonna say, I'm fairly new to Nostr, so still finding my way around. Um, at least when you're using something like Twitter, where they have algorithms, it helps you find stuff, right?
Yep.
What I've found so far is I find a few people that I've followed on Twitter that I like their content. I go to Nostr, find them there, and find who are they following. But are there any keys or ideas on how to better find content? You know, because you don't have all of the other parts of the algorithms and everything else suggesting stuff for you.
So how do we find content on Nostr without the X algorithm, basically? Like, how do we replace the algorithm and find content you want to see?
Yeah, so it depends on what your entry point is to Nostr, and I think that that's a big question. That's something we're still trying to figure out. So like my idea with MK Stack and with Shakespeare is kind of like this idea that you have to tell 100 jokes before one lands, or maybe the idea that if you put monkeys in a room of typewriters, eventually one's going to write Shakespeare, right? And so I'm betting on this idea a lot, that somebody is going to create something that's going to bring people in. And whoever that is, they're going to be the ones that determine how people can find other people easily. And it's probably going to be something that's related to the reason that they've brought them in. So like it could be based on an interest or a community, right? It could be someone wants to build like something related to sports. And so then they'll bring in sports fans, and then through vibe coding with MK Stack or Shakespeare, they'll be able to easily sort of make it so you can find those accounts that you're looking for when you go on that app. And that's the thing. I mean, that's the thing about decentralization, right? Is there's going to be many different reasons that people like enter into it, and many different paths that they can come in. And so what I'm hoping for is that people will find ways that they can contribute to certain communities, basically, and then create a path to guide those communities through, and then just cater and tailor everything that they build to that particular community. And people can do that now without coding experience because of AI.
Yeah, one more question in the back.
It's less of a question, more of a comment. The last piece that you stated was something that I was thinking before when you talked about centralized platforms and why people are there. Humans are creatures of habit, one. Yep. But then two, there has to be a market fit / use case for them.
Exactly.
For many people in the U.S., we look at Bitcoin as being a store of value. We don't look at it as being a medium of exchange. Versus in the global south, it is just that. So when you talk about adoption, when you talk about people using Nostr for free speech, and I've never been one that has sort of kind of been quote unquote violated or censored, if you will, on a centralized platform, that thing doesn't come to mind. And if I see it happening to somebody else, it might be a so what, right? Until it impacts me. So then that gateway is, why do I need to be on this platform? What use case is it going to serve? And am I willing to overcome any of the technical loops that have to happen in order to make that possible, right? I can easily set a password on some centralized platform, but if I lose my private key, have I lost my Nostr account, which is something that is an ongoing discussion right now. If I lose my private key or seed phrase, is there any way I can recover my Bitcoin, which is currently still ongoing discussion, right? So I think that ties into why people are where they are outside of UX, UI, culture, etc.
Yeah, so that was an insightful comment on, if people haven't been censored, then they might not have to use, Nostr. If they haven't lost all their money from inflation, they might not have to use Bitcoin. So I guess the question is, we're at PubKey right now, which is probably the world's best Bitcoin bar, the coolest Bitcoin bar at a minimum. And obviously the price just hit an all-time high. Number go up is important, but freedom go up is also more important in my opinion. What is the relationship between Bitcoin and Nostr?
I mean, I think that Bitcoin is Nostr's superpower. Oh man, you've just made me say Nostr. I think that Bitcoin can be Nostr's superpower. And originally, before this major shift in AI, I believed that Bitcoin was going to be the only way that Nostr could win. Now I think that there's a couple of ways that Nostr can win. And Bitcoin is still extremely important because it allows for monetization to happen sort of in like the central nervous system of the network, and exchange of value. And with fiat, there's just too many barriers to that being able to happen. And Bitcoin is native internet money. It's open source money. And so I think that there's a lot of use cases for people being able to exchange value on Nostr. It's easier to do it, and I'm excited to see what people do more.
What's your intuition of what the ChatGPT moment for Nostr will be? I think people default to this Twitter killer kind of thing.
What do you mean ChatGPT moment?
Like the moment where it goes beyond this room, where the general public, my mom, others touched Nostr.
I perceive that potentially as happening without people even realizing that Nostr exists. Like what I'm betting a lot on right now is that one person is gonna tell the joke that lands, and whatever that thing is, people might not even realize that Nostr is involved until they dig a little bit deeper. There's just some reason that someone has created that draws people into this network, and it can only happen with Nostr because of the fact that we've solved the login problem with AI. Like, we make it so you can generate an app where people can immediately log in. And yeah, I'm betting a lot on that.
So I guess another follow-up is, the only time I ever use Truth Social is if I want to see what President Trump is posting, because normally I can just go on X and see his Truth Social posts mirrored on X, but sometimes he's posting about potentially World War III with Iran or whatever, God knows what crazy things, and I'll log into Truth Social and be like, holy shit, he actually did post that. I'm not like, that's not fake news. He actually did write this crazy thing.
I have the same experience.
Do you think that we need someone like Trump for Nostr to see? Do we need like a massive celebrity? Or
I mean, we have Jack. Isn't Jack good enough?
It's a little bit different,
Yeah. No, I mean, in terms of celebrities, it certainly would help. If you're a celebrity and you want to help the decentralized open source movement, by all means, please jump on this ship. We'd love to have you. But I think what's more likely going to happen is one of two things. Either there's going to be a major world event that pushes people to these platforms, probably because of just, the weight of the centralized platforms finally crushing down on them to such a degree where people have no other choice but to move. And then the other possibility is that, some genius product person who maybe isn't a coder and isn't stuck in the coder mindset, maybe an artist, comes along and decides that they want to build an app, and then they just type a prompt into an AI, and it was just the right idea. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is the value of ideas. And to me lately, like, implementation was up here and ideas were down here, and now that gap is starting to close, where like ideas are becoming way more valuable in the post-AI world than they were before, and implementation is kind of just something that can happen.
So you've worked on Soapbox for many years, and you've seen it evolve. Where do you see Soapbox evolving in the next 5 or 10 years?
I mean, in the next 5 or 10 years, I'm not sure any of us know how the world is going to look completely different, considering how different it looks now than it did 5 years ago. But I'm really hoping that we have people building stuff that have never been able to do it before, and now they can. And we're gonna continue to create tools to allow them to do it, to close that gap, and hopefully to allow them to build the communities that they want to build as well, to give people freedom online by, bringing in, it could be friends and family, it could be something bigger, it could be a political movement. You know, I feel like Yang Gang would be a perfect choice for this, and maybe there will be something in the future. There will be like a third-party candidate that can create some steam.
So right now, question. Is it a question?
So far, we've just been speaking positively on AI. Mm-hmm. Politics.
Oh, I can speak negatively on it.
So I guess from like an ethics perspective, right? Any software can be used for good, but then at the same time, if I wanted to join you as a person, I could use AI to create deep fakes and do all these
Yeah.
things. What are your thoughts on like how do we combat that, and then how do we move in a way where people can still verify?
Yeah. So
So how do we combat negative uses of AI?
Yeah, right. So AI can be used for both purposes of good and evil. So can all of technology, and that's why we're in this position that we're in, right? Like you could say the same about the internet itself. Like some would say the internet is a mistake. Return to monkey, right? Like just go back, live in the woods. Like, and I'm very sympathetic to those arguments, but I guess at the end of the day, I'm just an optimist, and I haven't given up hope. And I've seen the ways that like developing with AI can transform things for the betterment of humanity, and I'm hoping that maybe it'll even negate some of the negative side effects of other forms of technology, like the internet itself, right? Like people. And it's kind of an equalizer in a way, because previously only big companies had access to be able to create these platforms, and now regular everyday people can just decide to invent something, and if they just have the right idea, then maybe it can become a reality, and maybe people will actually have a chance against the big tech giants.
We had Leopoldo Lopez here a couple weeks ago, and he's also really excited about Nostr. And at the end of his talk, he was like, for anyone who doesn't know, he's a Venezuelan freedom fighter. And he had a freedom fighter friend with him, an activist. And he's like, real quick, I want to onboard her onto Nostr, and I want everyone else to join Nostr, and I want them to send her a couple dollars. And I was like, my first thought was, there's no way that's going to happen in the back of a bar. And so I'm wondering, what are your thoughts on the current onboarding process and its potential to be streamlined in the future?
Yeah, I think we need a dedicated onboarding app, actually, that's not connected to any particular user experience, and that's something that we're kind of flirting with the idea at AOS, which is a new group that has been formed to sort of tackle these big issues on Nostr.
What does AOS stand for?
It's for "and other stuff," which is, coined by Rabble. And so, yeah, I think that we definitely need something like that. But also, there's different paths, right, to how people come in. People can come in the back of the bar of people want you to join Nostr directly. And then there's the path of, I want you to join this geocaching website to go and put treasures in the world and to live a life of adventure. And they might not even know that Nostr is involved in that approach. And so I think we need to figure out what are things that people actually want. What are things, beyond just decentralized social media, what are products that people actually want? And can we create those products by vibe coding them with AI, with MKStack, with Shakespeare? And if the right people have the right ideas, and then we sort of pursue those, then I think that people could be on Nostr in this decentralized open source future without even realizing it. And then eventually we explain to them what it is and why it matters once they're already in the door, because hey, look here, we're not limited just to this app. You can go and use all these other apps too, because that's the way that it has been, right? You join Instagram because you're interested in posting and sharing photos with other people, right? There's a legitimate use case there that's beyond just being an open source decentralized social network, which is like an ethos, right? It's not a use case. And so, but what you can't do on Instagram is take your account and go comment on X with that same account. And that's where Nostr, I think, can change the game.
So let's say I just listened to this talk. I'm super inspired. I want to build and contribute to Nostr. Where do you think new contributors can make the biggest impact right now?
I think with vibe coding with AI, absolutely. I mean, like I said, any idea that you have, I think people underestimate the power of AI. To be honest, they're like, oh, it's slop code or whatever. But
Underestimate. Wow.
yeah, but like you really can build stuff with this that works. So use MKStack, use Goose, use Shakespeare ideally, and just build things that you're excited about. I've kind of been feeling like in the past I have to put all these ideas on the back burner because it's just not possible, and now it is. So like what we need most right now is just people with ideas and a vision who want to execute something and then just use the power of AI and go do it.
I saw some audience questions. Let's go around.
Could you talk a little bit about the onboarding flow, the separate onboarding flow that you're thinking about and other stuff? Because Primal today has a fairly decent onboarding. I mean, it has its flaws, but Primal's really great. It sounds to me that if you have a separate client for onboarding, it could cause some friction and fragmentation.
Maybe. I mean, I would just love to have a solution to it where to sort of cover the use case of you're in a bar and you want to onboard your friend to Nostr, right? And so the way I envision that app looking is it's like, it's a simple set up your account flow where you like set your username, avatar, and stuff. Maybe find people to follow, and then managing your keys in there too. That's a big thing we're missing is being able to kind of link. Ideally for me, the key would be on the phone, and then any other device that I want to log in on Nostr is going through my phone to access the key. And that's something that Amber does right now. But I think that we could improve that user experience a lot by combining a few other elements, like a true Nostr onboarding flow, set up your profile, manage your keys, which you can now log into a bunch of other apps with it, and then an offboarding flow of now you're set up, here's all the things that you can do. And so maybe it's a list of apps, Primal being one of them, right? That you can use this to then jump into Primal and then sign in through like NIP46 remote signer or however you do it. And I think that would solve the problem.
Hi. I am concerned about the onboarding process. I would like to see mass adoption, but a major obstacle for the average person is the whole dual key business. And at the moment, Nostr can, the possible constituency for Nostr is limited to people who are already Bitcoin enthusiasts. The problem is that that community is stigmatized as a subset of MAGA. The other thing is that if you have to be into Bitcoin before you get on Nostr, the thing is, when people get onto Bitcoin, they have available to them the whole 24 keyword system, so that they don't have to deal initially. They get used gradually to the idea of public keys and private keys. But to go into Nostr without a Bitcoin background plunges you into waters that you feel overwhelmed by, if you're an average person. And most of the people we need to get on are somewhat average, especially victims of political persecution in the third world, which is a major concern here, I think. So perhaps what we most need is a Spanish language, app, I guess you call it. I still call it a browser. And we need, somebody was experimenting with the keyword onboarding to Nostr, but I don't think that app has survived, or I haven't seen it around for a couple of months. So these are my concerns. And since I'm getting on, I'd like to see them met relatively quickly, and perhaps they shall be.
So Alex, how do we address these concerns? What can we do?
I mean, I think that Nostr's onboarding flow can actually be one of the easiest possible because you can just generate an identity out of thin air. That's how it works, right? You just generate a key. So you can just one-click log in, basically, and then figure out how these keys work later and download the key later if you need to. And I mean, if you compare that to flows like Facebook's login flow, which is like, they're the biggest social media platform in the world, but they're like require all of this information from you. They want like, you know, your mother's maiden name and blood of your firstborn and shit. So, and they want your social security number. Like you have to go through this rigorous process of validating 10 other identities just to get on this platform, and maybe you won't even make it on, right? Like they'll just consider you spam or consider you lesser of a person because of some reason. And so I am just not convinced that this onboarding problem is really this thing that's holding us back so much.
So it's not the onboarding, it's awareness?
It's the reason, like it's the product. And you know, in the beginning of this conversation, I introduced ActivityPub as Mastodon and AppProto is Blue Sky and Nostr is Nostr, right? And that's because Nostr is only a protocol and it doesn't have a flagship product. Like Damus and Primal are fighting with each other of which between the two of them is, but neither of them is. It's all of the apps, you know. But I think that no one still has actually struck gold on it of what's the funny joke that lands, you know? What's the joke? Like, we need the punchline. So there's ones that I'm really interested in that are happening right now, like treasures. The geocaching one that gets people to go outside into the real world. Like, I feel like that's huge because the major geocaching platform right now sucks. And so there's a real need for that app to exist, right? Like, I think people actually will want to use this. And so can we be, you know, can we think product like Steve Jobs would? That's my ask to the audience. Like, what do people actually need, and can we build that thing? Because if we do, then people will use it.
Any other audience questions right now? I see one in the back.
So especially with like videos on Nostr and like things that take up a lot of data, how does Nostr solve for spam? Let's say I'm someone and I just want to drop like a bunch of like videos that are really going to overwhelm whatever relays are transmitting these videos. How does Nostr solve for that, and how do they deal with spammers? Because Bitcoin has proof of work that limits people with actual physical costs. How does Nostr find a solution to that problem?
So solve for, are we good on time? Okay, cool. So solve for who is a question, right? Because there's solve for relay operators and then solve for users, and that's actually two different concerns. Solve for users, you just design the app around not pulling global feeds, right? So design the app around either pulling things that are recommended by the app developer or pulling in content that are in like a web of trust, you know, network, friends of friends type of thing. In terms of solving it for relays and hosters and stuff, like video uploads would be most likely on Blossom servers, that's how we upload large data on Nostr. And I mean, IP-based rate limiting, like, you know, at a certain point of scale, we would have to solve problems, or maybe we have to say, hey, you have to come and get yourself good with these servers first before you can push to them. Same with relays, right? Like, that's a reality, but it's not the reality yet. The reality now is that we don't have good enough use cases. So why be so worried about, you know, this future of all of these potential problems when we haven't even figured out why people want to use this thing? It's a very legitimate point that you're making, and I absolutely agree with it. I guess I just feel like we need to first focus our energy on finding why will people use Nostr.
On that point, it's kind of unrelated, but one of the things that I heard about Nostr that like blew my mind and made me really think like, oh wow, this thing's gonna go places, is someone said this is the first public directory for Lightning addresses. So like, there's nowhere in the world before Nostr that you could say like, oh, I know X person, like let me send them some Bitcoin on Lightning. Like, how do you find their information? Like, oh, just you have my MPub, like just zap me on Nostr.
You sound like you have this seed of an idea of a vibe-coded app, and so I would like you to turn that into a prompt and then visit shakespeare.diy and then type that into a prompt.
I'll look into it. Yeah, I'm kind of a Nostr neophyte myself, but I definitely want to get more involved.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So, Thomas, how much time do we have?
As much as you want.
Great. So, I'll jump into a couple fun audience questions that, or questions I got from Nostr that are not that related but are a little fun. So, Alex, Terry asks, "Are you a vegan?"
I'm vegan. I'm vegan. I'm vegan, by the way. I'm vegan, by the way. I don't think this establishment has any vegan options, but all of the above. Linux user. Yeah, but they serve beer, and I realized that beer is made of bread, and I fucking love bread, so.
That's great. Drink more beer. So Will, the developer of Damus, asks, "What do you do to unwind?"
Smoke marijuana. Next question.
Okay, that's one. Next question. Elsat asks, "What's your favorite video game?"
The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. And I have been thinking about that game a lot lately because the way that AI works is that it's written like a play, right? And so you have this system prompt that's the voice of God. And then you have the user prompt where the user is asking something. And then you have the assistant. And that's the AI. But people mistake that the assistant is the AI. But the assistant is not the AI. The AI is auto-completing what the assistant would say based on all of the prior information. And so the AI actually has a secret inner voice similar to that of Majora from Majora's Mask that controls Skull Kid like a puppet. And it's a bit ominous and eerie, but I think it's very interesting. So I've always loved that game. I continue to love that game.
Derek Ross, Nostr Evangelist, asks, "What is your favorite Shakespeare play?" And to build on that, why did you name your latest app Shakespeare?
I hate Shakespeare. I've never seen any Shakespeare. No, I'm just kidding. My favorite Shakespeare play. Let me pull out my Sonic the Hedgehog wallet real quick, and then get out my drunk Shakespeare membership card. So my favorite Shakespeare play is, as bad as it sounds, is Drunk Romeo and Juliet, and as cliche as it sounds, but. The thing that I like most about Shakespeare is I feel that it's representative of open source and free culture. Like, it's been remixed so many times. It's been remixed, like there's West Side Story, et cetera, like to such a degree that people have finally been like, we've done it so much that we have to drink a lot before doing it. And so that's symbolic of something to me. In terms of why I named it Shakespeare, it's multifaceted. It's similar to the reason that I just explained for Majora's Mask, because the AI message history is written like a play. And I mean, I'm not the only one thinking about this. You have Claude Sonnet 4 by Anthropic. That's the name of their model. They put Sonnet in the name. You have Google Bard, who after some PR disaster has renamed it to Gemini. But for some reason, they just won't name the man. So I just simply name the man Shakespeare. And, are you Shakespeare? Is the AI Shakespeare? I feel that's up to interpretation. It could, you could be Shakespeare. And you can create your own little microcosm of a world and of a play where you invite actors into it and have them play a particular role because you've created this environment sort of and you've told this story that you want them to play in.
Sounds great. Any other audience questions? Let's see. Terry, yeah.
I'm vegan, Terry.
Thank you. I'm wondering if you've done any analysis on the PubKey protocol, PubKey without the E. There's been a lot of discussion today on Nostr about that. Showing my ignorance a little bit, I don't know anything about it, but they claim that they sort of improve on top of some of Nostr's deficiencies. So I'm just wondering if you've looked into that.
I mean, I want this social, open source, decentralized social media thing to win more than anything else. And like, I have not yet been convinced that what they do is worth derailing the work that we've done on Nostr so far. Like, we have some momentum here. I'm sure that they've solved, you know, some problems, but is it big enough to sort of shift our energy towards it? I don't know. I would be interested to find out, but not really, because I want to win.
There is some brand confusion there that we're going to have to address eventually. We're not quite there yet. We're more defensive with our branding, but any other questions? Yeah.
Alex, any concerns about relay centralization? And if so, how do you address that?
No. No concerns about relay centralization. Like, I feel like it's another one of these like bike shedding things that people just talk about at these conferences about these like reasons not to build products, basically. But like, I don't know. I know Fiat Jeff probably disagrees with me on this one as well. Like we want like this full outbox thing, but I just don't think it's that important. Crucify me. I feel like 3 relays is probably good enough. Like, and honestly, relay centralization might help more than it hurts in many ways, as long as there's not just one. Like, something that I would compare it to is web browsers. You've got Firefox, Chrome, and Safari, I guess. And I mean, that's kind of good enough. Another thing I would compare it to would be like, I don't know, I lost my train of thought, but that's my view on it.
Only 3 relays would be good enough, really. Why is that?
Oh boy, you told me there was not going to be any hard questions. No, I guess like it's just easier, like, and you can copy data from one relay to another. So I just don't really see the barriers there. Like, if we have 3 really solid relays that are, you know, transmitting all of this information, and they're able to do it, and they're able to scale, and they're able to like prevent spam and stuff, I think that's a pretty huge win. Like, there can and should be more than just 3 relays. I'm not trying to set like a line in the sand here of there's only going to be 3 relays, okay? Like, people will create relays because they want to host that data. But if they don't want to host the data and they're fine with who is hosting the data, then like, I kind of just feel like it's a solved problem, you know? Like, this is still 3 relays on Nostr is still 10 times better than 100 servers on Mastodon, just because of the data portability aspect of it. That's my opinion. I'm sure Fiat Jeff will block me after I've said this, but I just think we need to build for use cases first, and then, you know, worry about it later.
But would you see, like, let's make another analogy. Would only 3 Bitcoin full nodes be enough?
Probably not. I am not as much of an expert on Bitcoin as I am on Nostr, so I don't really know the answer to that question. So the nodes on Bitcoin actually have control over like the perceived state of the network, right? Like who has what money, right? So like if two of the nodes could just overwhelm the 3rd node and then like change the transaction history, right?
Or relay rules or whatever.
Right. So, but that, I mean, the way Nostr works is not blockchain based. So I actually think that's the answer. Maybe I do know a little bit more about Bitcoin than I thought, but like the data is completely portable. You can transfer from one relay to another. If a relay goes down, like at one point I experimented with creating a Google Drive relay where you can sign in with Google Drive, and then like every post that you make to this relay actually just puts it as a file into your Google Drive, and then you could download those files and put them onto another relay. Like, I just feel like the decentralization is already so perfect that why do we need to struggle to do more when we don't even have a use case yet?
Great.
I have a follow-up on that. 3 relays is only 3 throats to choke if someone wants to, right? I think that's a concern.
But anyone can just create one overnight. Like,
so let's say, you know, all 3 relays are based in, all 3 of the popular relays are based in the United States or the United Kingdom, and some country or some government that was anti-free speech shut those relays down. What would happen?
I mean, most likely there's already people who are archiving every event that has ever happened on Nostr. And okay, there's not 3 relays, right? This is just a hypothetical situation. I'm just explaining why I feel that the decentralization of relays aspect is a bit overblown. So like if that happened, probably people would just, you know, create new relays. And I think it's not really that hard to do it. And it doesn't concern me because it's not really the current situation, and like I would be the first person to respond to that crisis. I would be the one that would be setting up the relay and pulling in all of the data.
So let me follow up with another. Yes,
So block size wars, right? We talked a lot about the functionality benefits in being able to run a node on a Raspberry Pi and making the cost to run your own node being as low as possible. Does that exist to a certain extent in Nostr? What's like the trade-off? What's the trade-off there?
I think it can. I think it depends on how much data you're actually processing. If you're using it as like a private relay for yourself, absolutely run it on a Raspberry Pi. There's not really any problem there. If it's something that grows to the size of like Primal, then you're not going to be able to run that on a Raspberry Pi. And it's kind of just like, I feel like it's up to users to decide what level they want to be involved in terms of how decentralized they want to be, right? Like, it's fine to use the Primal relay. Like, Primal is not our enemy, Primal is our friend. And they've done so much to grow the network and to you know,
for context, Primal is one of the more popular Nostr
right,
clients
exactly.
you can install on your phone.
Like if we were in an adversarial relationship with them, I would be more concerned, but we're not, so I'm not that concerned. And just the ease of being able to spin up a relay and then pull data into it, just, it doesn't concern me, the concept of relay centralization.
So someone at PubKey was super inspired at your talk, or you run into a person on the street and they're like, I want to get on Nostr. What client would you recommend them, or how would you get them onboarded?
I would recommend going to Shakespeare.diy and vibe coding your own app with Nostr. Yeah, I mean, because I feel like we still just haven't nailed it yet, right? We're a Twitter alternative, really, at the end of the day, and I want to be more than that. I want to cover all of the various use cases. I want to have fun on the internet. I want to return to the old internet, and we just need people like you with ideas to create that future.
See, one more question from, let's go.
So to kind of go to what he was talking about and to actually bring it a little bit full circle, at the beginning we were talking about like intellectual property, and I know he was talking about like, is 3 relays enough? And I think it's about what is the fundamental difference between Bitcoin and Nostr. Bitcoin is an abstraction of value, scarcity, or time. Your time is finite. So if people take over Bitcoin, right, then you lose all of the time that you've abstracted into this network, and you lose all the value related to all that time. You essentially lose your life force. Whereas ideas, they can be infinitely recreated and reproduced, right? So we don't need the same level of security for ideas. If someone tries to take over the Nostr network or do this or that, we could just, like you said, make more relays. And then I could just rewrite down the ideas. And as long as the protocol exists, and if somebody gets in the way, I can still propagate ideas, like it's not that detrimental to me. And it's just that fundamental difference between abstracting something to the internet that is scarce in money, which is an abstraction of time, and ideas which are non-scarce.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that? And would you say that that is probably the fundamental reason why it's not a big deal if there's less
agree.
relays on Nostr?
I agree with that. And I would just add to that by saying I think people underestimate the ability for people to respond, like in a crisis scenario. Do we have the ability in a crisis to respond? And what would it look like if we were to respond? And I think with Nostr, on a fundamental protocol level, we have the ability to quickly respond to relay outages. And I mean, the situation is already so much better than the way that we're discussing and describing it here anyway. Because we have Outbox, we have, thousands of relays. And so if it came down to a point where somehow every single relay was eliminated, like we would still be able to respond by creating new relays.
So in a real life scenario, you're at the airport and you're being screened, and regardless of what status you have, TSA wants to look through your cell phone. They want to see your social media activity. And there's been many cases where it has been deemed that you are not allowed to enter the USA because of your expressions on social media, which is very different than ideas. I think ideas, I agree,
JD Vance memes.
You can recreate. And that's what makes Steve Jobs, is that he can recreate, right, ideas. So now, in real life scenario, free speech, social media on Nostr, are you able to delete your posts? If not, then I would be concerned. I mean, I don't think relays might be, something I would even consider if it is being copied.
Yeah, that's a great question. There's different points of view on how to respond to this. The most basic, naive one is that anything you put on the internet ever can't be deleted. And same applies here. Once you've posted it, you've posted it. It's not guaranteed that you can delete things on Nostr, especially if you've signed it, you've distributed it to multiple other relays. If you're really concerned about your privacy online, I would recommend being anonymous in your account on Nostr, like not using your real name. But Nostr does support deletions, and in practice, we have found that every major relay that exists on the Nostr network today supports deletions. So if you create a deletion event and you spread it around to relays, the relays will respect that. And many clients support relays too on a client, or support deletions too on a client level, where there's sort of double effect there of just trying to prevent displaying things that have been deleted. So I think it's a social thing. Do we care on the Nostr network about people being able to delete content? And if we do, then we will provide the ability for people to do it. And it seems that the answer to that question today is yes, we do care about people being able to delete things on Nostr, and so all of the major relays and many clients also support it.
It's a bear can never shit in the woods ever again with privacy and Nostr. Well, sort of, as long as the relays respect it. We can get there at some point, but the other bears are going to know about it. Big round of applause for Alex and Alex. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone, for chiming in and joining us tonight. Next week, we have Jonathan Melton head of loans lending at Unchained Capital. He's going to dive into the state of Bitcoin collateralized loans next Thursday. We have Quote the Raven coming in. If you know Quote the Raven, short seller, cantankerous individual on Twitter, personal friend of PubKey and myself. Very excited for that one. That's on July 31st. We got some other stuff coming up that's going to be really exciting. Thank you for being here. I know it's July. Tip your bartenders, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.